Welcome everybody to this webinar here on International Stress Awareness Day, Stress Awareness Week, and really looking forward to sharing some key practical tips that we can help you with. I want to introduce Alex, who works with me on all of these webinars. Don't know if you want to just do some housekeeping, Alex, from your end, but obviously delighted to have you here to help make sure everything runs smoothly and we can hear people's voices as we go along.
Thank you, Suhail. Yes, fingers crossed, everything will run smoothly. As Suhail said, I'm Alex. I work here at Future You, and I will be the one that shares links and things. So keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions, if you just want to pop them in the chat, or if you want to participate at all, then the chat is the place to do that, as we're expecting quite a lot of people on today's call. So if I could ask everybody to kind of keep themselves on mute, that would be fantastic. But yeah, I think that's it from me, Suhail. So back over to you.
So great stuff. Very proud to be presenting this on behalf of Future You. For those of you who will know, we support learners in social care and wider healthcare in their career journeys. And part of our goal is to help retention and help with people with tools to cope with what is a stressful world, etc. Hi, Balaji. Good afternoon to you. Just seeing you on the chat there. If we can go to the next slide, just set out what we're going to cover, please, Alex. So we're going to have a quick look at the mental health challenges facing the sector, the actual way that we approach this in terms of an inclusive approach to wellness. And some of you may have joined some of these sessions in the past. We've been super busy with NHS trusts as well, now taking up our offer of support for their workforce. So it's been a really exciting time. The key takeaways will be 5 steps that you can take for a few minutes each day to help with stress and anxiety. And we're also going to look at a couple of exercises in terms of getting more of the emotions that we want. If we want to summarize everything, the goal at the end of this session is to give you some tools, simple tools, not always easy, that will help you get more of the emotions you want, less of the emotions you do not want. And that voice in the head, which can be very damaging, we're going to try to quieten that down. If we go to the next slide, please, Alex. I'm also the host of Voices of Care podcast, and I'm just going to look at a couple of recent episodes. On the right, Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. On the left, an array of leaders from social care. And what's come out strongly in so many of these episodes is the importance of wellness, the importance of supporting people in mental health, and how that must be central to anything that we want to achieve. Alex and some of the people that we're supporting in terms of their learning, large numbers have completed our wellness courses, and we've had some great feedback in terms of the practical steps that people can take.
Absolutely.
And I'm very proud of that. So let's go to the next slide, if I may. Again, I don't think anyone here is going to be surprised to learn we are living in very, very stressful times. Hi, Paul from Yorkshire. I've got a special affinity towards Yorkshire. My son from there, so just saying hello quickly. So we're seeing a lot more of this now, and stress can be something that's often triggered by an external event and that we have to respond to. It can have a particular impact on us. Anxiety is that actually multiplied on a continuous basis. And to give you a context for today, ironically, I think Alex will know a little bit about this. There was a danger that I may not have made the webinar today. I had to go and have an emergency GP appointment, some issues around my health, and I had to go to pharmacy, possibly go to the A&E. Thankfully not. So I think I was a living example of the fact that you can get stressed through an event that you had no idea that was coming. How do we cope with that? What do we do to respond to that? I think I'll use that as a bit of a theme as we share some of these steps. Let's go to the next slide. What's our approach to actually dealing with stress, helping us to flourish? It's what I call inclusive inner wellness. And this is the mind, body, spirit cultivation. And there's a quote there, which is actually from Army units in the Marine Corps that say that if you cultivate these things based on love, that builds great leadership of ourselves and actually of those that are around us. That's been my approach. That's the wisdom model that I developed. And those will be the principles that I'm drawing on. If we go to the next slide, please, Alex, a lot of information here, which I think, Alex, you'll be able to share this because all the recording is being shared so people can look at that. What this shows is that in the last 20 years, 25 years, a big revolution in psychology, positive psychology, multicultural psychology, the idea that we can take the world's traditions and learn what works, not just simply the Western medical model, brilliant as though that is. So that's been this approach. There's a couple of people whose work I greatly admire. On the left, Dr. Lisa Miller, she says, I won't read it all, she's a clinical science is now seeing that actually even through despair, we can have expanded awareness. So the idea is to honor ourselves, what the emotions, every emotion, and find something that of value that we can take away from there. And Rupert Sheldrake is confirming what many people have known for a long time, that many spiritual practices now are being investigated scientifically. Their value is being accepted far more powerfully. So we're going to be drawing from all of these as we go through each of these steps. If you go to the next slide, I'll just summarize, if I may. It's all of these things. I think for our well-being, it's a question of our emotions, how we think, because that has an effect on our feelings, our ability to connect with the world. And the thing that runs through it is that inner self, who we are. Now, I want to make two promises before we start sharing some of these practices, and it'd be great to hear from people as we go through it. Everything that I'm sharing is based on experiential success, things that have actually worked for me and worked for those that I have worked with around the world in many, many different sectors. The background is true. It's not a virtual background. I have read those books. But what's important is what can you do after this webinar? You know, if you're VJ, what can I take away immediately when I'm dealing with it? Can I have something that I can interact and implement on my busy day? That's the goal. So it's based on experiential. My second promise is that everything I share, I will tell you the truth. Now, I'm a former lawyer, so people say, does that come naturally to a lawyer? It does, I promise. What it means here is that some of the steps actually are not easy. They may be simple, but they're not easy. And where they're not easy, I'll tell you, but I believe they'll be worthwhile. So I hope that sets that context for you in terms of our approach. If we go to the next slide, please, Alex. I created a model that I've helped people around the world in groups, individually, take them on a journey from where they may be now to a place where actually far more consistently they can embrace who they are as themselves. Because if you want a secret, there's no real secrets, but if there's all a secret in terms of doing our best for stress and anxiety and mental health, it's finding a place, or as many places each day, to be our authentic self. How do we do that? It's not always easy because of external circumstances. Life changes, businesses change, people's roles can be upset, elections, wars, there's so many things. So that's the goal, that authentic, true self, who you are. Can we find a place to connect to that? Because sometimes life is going to give you challenges you can't solve through just positive thinking. Bereavements, death, illness, wider things that affect us that we have to acknowledge. How do we navigate through that process? So that's what we're going to focus on now in this first segment, some steps that we can share. And it'd be great to hear from people in terms of whether they actually undertake these. If we go to the next slide, please, Alex, these are the simple steps. So let's start with step number one that I incorporate into my daily life, 3 minutes every morning. It could be at any time of the day, depending on shift work, etc. If we move to that slide, please. And that is gratitude. So what does that mean? What would I recommend that you do? So today, for example, I had all of these things that were really weighing me down, running around. At the end of it, I was doing my best. What's the lesson I can learn from here? What should I be grateful for? Well, actually, I'm grateful because, Michael said, can this model be used alongside as part of trauma-informed approaches? Thanks for the question, Michael. I think the answer is it can be set aside as a complement to many different pathways, is the answer. Alex, we've worked here with many different organizations. So I'll give you an example, Michael. I'm delivering on behalf of Future You, a whole suite of wellness to support several NHS trusts. Now, the NHS trusts that we're working with have a plethora of psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, a huge range of other therapies and interventions. So this is very much a complement to that. It's not a therapy, but it hopefully deals with things immediately alongside longer term intervention. So hopefully that answers that question. So thank you for that, Michael. So gratitude, what does that mean? How do we make this a daily routine? 3 minutes, the big stuff, the small stuff, because the language we use to ourselves, that voice that's going on in your head, we can temper it. So what do I mean? So every day in the morning, I spend those 3 minutes giving gratitude for the big things, those things that if they were not in my life, it would have a very profound effect. That includes the people that I love, my health, which was brought very much into focus today as I was running around. I've also included within that memory of the faces of 1 or 2 people who are not with me anymore, but who had a very beautiful influence on me and made me feel very loved. I remember their faces, I honor them. So it makes me feel enriched that I had those individuals in my life, that I have individuals in my life, that I have opportunities. I give gratitude for the flowing water, the big things that are around us. The small stuff is what's happened in the previous 24 hours. I take 3 things and write them down. Now I do 12, but I recommend you do 3. You write them down on the note paper. Doesn't matter if you've had a bad day. What are 3 things that you could be grateful for? Maybe the motorway was free and you got to your journey ahead of time. Maybe you got a GP appointment this morning at 8 o'clock and you're able to be there an hour later. That's what happened to me. Maybe the internet was working because you've suffered in the past with having very poor internet. My daughter gave me a hug. A million different things, even in a stressful day. If they become part of your routine, you have at the end of the week, according to this, I've got 84 things that I can look back for. And what does that mean? Is that going to solve all our problems and issues? No, but it makes us feel more abundant. But because isn't it true sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling super worried, actually you feel as if you haven't got those resources, that somehow that you're impoverished. That's how I felt. I feel smaller, but actually we can feel more expansive because of these things. If you click on the next point, please, Alex, just bring that up. What are the huge things that's impacted your life? Temi or Michael, you don't have to answer, just picking the names that I see there. What's the difference? What are you grateful for today? For whom are you grateful today? What's happened in the previous 24 hours that you actually, I'm grateful for that. So incorporating these few minutes every day is a huge antidote to stress and worry and fear, because those things look at what isn't here usually, or what might happen compared to what is actually happening. Anybody here practice gratitude at all? Just be interesting to see if anyone, usually there's a few people that do it. We now have a lot more of this practice. I think, Alex, is something that you've seen more people do since we've been doing these webinars and feedback. It's becoming a lot more. In America, they have, I think, Thanksgiving Day, so we haven't quite got one of those, but I don't know if we've seen a lot more.
I think quite a few people have mentioned having gratitude journals, and as Michael says, practicing mindfulness and just giving thanks in different ways. For me personally, I found jotting down things that have been positive in my day has been a really helpful way of kind of winding down in the evening and getting ready for bed. So I personally like to practice gratitude in that way.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thanks, Michael. Yes, mindfulness, we're going to come on to that. It's a really, really powerful tool. Not easy to do sometimes because the mind can distract us. Ogini, if that's the right pronunciation. Gratitude for the gift of a sound mind and health. Beautiful. How beautiful is that? We take that for granted sometimes, don't we? I know I do occasionally. Yolande's talked about opportunities. Schwartz, grateful for life, which is a brilliant way to do that. Adrian, thankful for today. This is the first thing I do when I wake up. Thankful for the day. Simple, but very, very powerful. And I think Schwartz is saying, I'm Grateful for passing your car, passing your MOT today. That's brilliant. And the social work license restoration. Looking forward to getting back into practice. That's fantastic to hear. Thank you for that, Schwartz. Really important. The gift of life from Caroline. I can't reach all of them. Thank you for sharing this. It's lifting me up. Grateful for nature and being outside, Georgina. It's a gift that we have around us if we're lucky to be able to easily access. I live in a village. Olubenga has talked about grateful for family. So these things that we have around us, I think, make a big, big difference. Tafadzwa has talked about grateful for good health and waking up today. That seems like such a trite statement. I woke up today. Tomorrow's not promised to anybody. I lost my grandfather when he was very, very young, died in his sleep, a very young age. So these things, I think, just give us that sense of gratitude. Thank you for sharing. I'm not going to carry everybody. It's really uplifting to see some of these things that are around us here. Thank you, Georgina. I think we've seen that one. Just grateful to have guys, grateful for Journey Mercies, roof over our head. Ganayat, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go on to the next step, which can be an antidote. And this is contemplation. This goes back to Michael talking about mindfulness. What do I mean by this? This is 3 minutes again, Michael. I'd be interested to see what your experience is. It's about taking time for ourselves. It's about being present to our inner self. Now, the word contemplation, I've used this quite deliberately because it can be, and it's what I'd recommend is the 3 minutes at the beginning of your day. 3 minutes added to the gratitude. It can be prayer if you are someone who believes in a higher power. It can be 3 minutes of that. It could be meditation. That's a term that we now are much more comfortable with than when I was at Alex's age, which is a very long time ago. In working life, people, honestly, meditation we'd all heard of it, but it was very, very much on the margins. Now I think people do that a lot more. So it can be meditation, or it can be contemplation, I've called that. What do I mean by it? So let me explain what I would recommend. 3 minutes, either in silence, sitting up. You can shut your eyes, you can focus on an object, and our goal is definitely not enlightenment. If you find it, please let me know, because I would desperately love to know what that is. What I mean by it is 3 minutes focusing on our breathing, paying attention, as Michael, I'm just looking at his comments, paying attention to the present moment and to your own thoughts and feelings. Beautiful summary. And let me expand upon that. There is no other outcome. There's no exam, there's no test. 3 minutes, breathing in, breathing out, and just observing. You're going to be on observer. You're not going to engage and you're not going to fight. You're just going to observe. What will happen if you've never done this before? There's 3 things. The first thing that will happen is your mind will go into overdrive. Huge amounts of noise to try to distract you. What on earth are you doing? You've got 50 things to do. You have to ignore. Remember, what we're doing is just observing. We're watching. So the second thing that will arise if you do this practice is you'll discover, which is what I did, if your mind is anything like mine, is vast amounts of the things that go on our head as background noise is either fantastical, imaginary, full of fear, and sometimes downright nasty to ourselves. How much of it is true? Just observe. Much of it isn't. The third thing that will happen, this is what happened to me over time, is you'll establish a distance. The fancy word is ontological distance. You in your essence are not the voice in your head. That's what I'm positing. Just as you're listening to me now, hopefully not going to sleep, but you're listening, you're not me. As you observe your thoughts, as Michael says, in the voice, what you're observing is your personality, which is a function of all the vicissitudes of life, good, bad, and ugly. But you, in your essence, in my view, are always brave and beautiful. But we don't often get to that place. In my own upbringing, I had loads of challenges. I came from what was at that time called a broken home, very unusual from my demographic. And we grew up in a very poor environment where I was sent by my father to pay for to go and collect the meat from the butcher shop. And at the end of the session, I would go to the counter and the proprietor would look at me when I said my father's going to come along later, and realized that actually we didn't have the money to pay for it. And that stayed with me a lot. I fought against that image. I found it very draining. But when I started doing these exercises, I realized that was just a function of a part of my life. My essence was very different. And now that boy in the butcher shop I embrace, because I said, you're trying to protect me, but I'm not that Suhail anymore. That distance is really, really important. 3 minutes breathing. I'm just going to check some of the comments there. Michael's, to be recognized is not easy. A way of training oneself needs to be practiced at 100%, Michael. This is not going to be straightforward, but it's paid huge dividends. And it's been around a long time. I've talked about prayer and I've talked about meditation. There's some books there on the left. Herbert Benson, cardiologist from Harvard 50 years ago, wrote that book, really establishing these practices, which have got thousands of years of history in the East, as I'm sure you will know. And it doesn't have to be religious. Some people will pray. Sam Harris is an avowed atheist, but his book, Waking Up, confirms that he does this practice. I think he calls it spirituality without religion. So it depends on your background. So that's 3 minutes, and that will be the important thing again at the beginning of the day. And what I'd like to do is to invite you, just before we do that, Alex, I know this is something very close to your heart. You've practiced meditation and these type of broader practices. That's been for quite a while. Has that made and it's made a difference?
Yeah, so I practice quite a bit of yoga, and so part of that is a lot of kind of breathing and contemplation and things like that. And I found it's been really helpful for me personally in managing stress and unwinding. So yeah, it's I fully believe in it.
No, great. It's good to hear from that. So what we're going to do now, if I may, if we go to the next slide, is we're going to just practice it. If you'd like to go along with me, just for even for a few seconds, just to get a bit of a taste. You don't have to. I can't see you. Most people's faces are off. So wherever you are, hopefully you're not driving, but if you're in a safe place, just join me for just a short while. And let's begin by closing our eyes, if that's comfortable for you. Relaxing your shoulders, relaxing the muscles in your face, relaxing your eyelids, just let them fall. And just literally observe your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, nice deep breath, breathe out. And continue doing that as is comfortable for you. Try to ignore my voice a little bit because it should be done in silence or etc. But focus on what you're seeing. Is the voice in your head saying, why am I doing this? Or what is this? Are there images striking up in your mind? Conversations, past events, what you've got to do at 3 o'clock and run around, whatever it might be. Acknowledge it, but don't fight with it. Don't engage and don't judge. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Now we can just come out of that. Just shake up our arms a little bit, open our eyes, go to head. Thank you so much. If you did do that, I just wanted to give a slight feel for what it is, and that for 3 minutes, it will feel like quite a long time. But as I think Alex has mentioned, it makes a big difference over time. And it does require training. It does require practice, as Michael says in his note there. Thank you for that. So what else can we do in order to battle stress, which is effectively worry, anxiety on a constant basis? Anyone here ever been reminded by those that are loving or should be loving towards us, friends or family, of past failures or our past errors? Do we have a voice in the head that sometimes reminds us of things we should have done, shouldn't have done? I certainly do. Both my hands go up. And for me, everybody I've ever worked with on this, almost always, are carrying what I call a metaphorical bag of regrets, of ideas that perhaps they should have implemented, things that they shouldn't have done while we walk up the mountain of life. We need to empty that bag through self-kindness, because those are the things that fuel the inner critic, that fuel that voice in our head. Kindness has to start with ourselves so we can pour it out to the rest of the world. The real you is not the combination or the product of things that you regret. They exist because they affect us and in our feelings. So what could we do? What should we do? The practice, this is the part I did warn everybody that actually some of the steps are not going to be easy, though they are simple. And this one was really hard for me because it took me a long while. I had a lot of things that I was carrying that would come out in periods of stress, and it would make me feel even more stressed and lead to a spiral of reminders of things that I shouldn't have done, things that I did do, etc. Sometimes I didn't need anybody else to remind me. It just came back. I was carrying them, reliving those things. And that's very, very powerful, because actually in a negative way, because it drains you. What did I do? I spent a considerable amount of time focusing on each of the activities where I had let myself down in terms of my values. And I apologized out loud. I did it on my own, late at night. It took me a long time. It was very, very emotional. Now, those events hardly ever come to haunt me. It took a long while, but it's been years and I hardly ever. I can't say they've completely gone, but massively, 90%, 95%, hardly, completely different. It feels like a huge burden and weight lifted. I would invite you to consider whether that could be something that's worthwhile for you to do. Let's have a think about that. It's worth the effort, it's worth the emotion, because actually we deserve that self-kindness and healthful self-love, which is harder to do when we're reminded of all the times we didn't actually live up to our or other people's expectations. If we just click the next point there, please, Alex, it should just come up.
We've just got a question from Michael on forgiveness, which you might want to cover.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Forgive me, Michael. I'm talking and then the chat on the side comes up a bit later. I've still got you back here to, training and practice. Sorry, apologies. Oh, I missed quite a few. I'm really sorry, everybody. I'm just seeing that music, singing music. We're going to come back to that. So Caroline, Sharika, thank you, Yolande. Does one have to forgive oneself or just accept? Just thinking about terminology, but completely understand point 3. It's a great question. I think the first thing that the word have to, I'm not saying you have to do anything. I'm sharing things that will be comfortable for you to do. And as I said at the beginning, Michael, I promise to tell the truth. For me, I carried that bag a lot and I found it really weighed on me a lot. Everyone I've ever coached or spoken to, everyone has said that this is an issue. And we're talking about self-forgiveness. Let me make that point really clear as well, Michael. This is forgiving ourselves where we might have let ourselves down, etc. This is not about forgiving other people who may have caused us pain or let us down. That is really important, but it's a very different pathway with a lot more moving parts and complexity. I hope that makes some sense. So it is about ourselves, and that's really, really important. So we don't have to. Acceptance is something that I think is built into the fact that we accept our imperfection. That's how I would put it. I accept that I did not live up to my expectation. For me, I apologize to the universe, and I don't get that back now. Those bigger things that have haunted me for many, many years. On a day-to-day basis, Michael, not every day, anyone here occasionally have a bit of road rage, feel a bit short with our colleagues and loved ones sometimes with pressures on. I recognize that, and I forgive myself for those points by recognition first. I hope that makes sense to you in terms of your question, but it's really important. And I think Sharika saying, I think it's recognize sorry, it moved again. The part you played in a situation. Yeah, I think that's right, Sharika. Again, I'm not telling anyone that they have to do any of these things. I can say they made a dramatic difference in my self-love, my healthful self-love, and my ability to love other people. And I did recognize, as you said, Sharika, the part I played. If I've hurt other people, I carried that, and I wanted to seek forgiveness for it. That helped me enormously. And then the difference was that once I had done it in that period of months and weeks on my own, it never came back to me. I didn't have to go over it over and over again. I lived it fully emotionally. It was very powerful in terms of my own emotions, but it felt like a cleansing, a catharsis to put it behind me. So thank you for the question as well. Thank you, Alex, for seeing that, because I didn't see the question come up there. Just want to leave a quote which I think someone whose work I really admire, Everett Worthington. It's a professor in the United States who's really done a lot of work, lifelong work on forgiveness. And I think the takeaway is that my invitation is that it merits your consideration on a daily basis, etc. He had to face a tremendously tragic situation where people had murdered loved ones in his family. That's a very different pathway, but I think the principle is the same. And just as an aside on this, and again, I'm not recommending everyone do this, but for me, on my journey to bring inclusive wellness, I spent time with many teachers and a wonderful human being who's passed away now, a scholar, a Jesuit scholar of St. Augustine. And I ended up taking confession with him. Now, I'm not from the same faith, I'm not a Catholic, but it's a very beautiful moment. I found it really transformative. Again, I'm not saying people should do that, but it lived to that principle about facing up to things and taking it. So Sharika say, I noticed once I take accountability for my part played, it is a relief. I think that's I think that's a really good point, Sharika. The taking accountability, but not being weighed down by it or to be self-diminished forever for it. I think that's the difference. You're absolutely right. Taking that accountability made a big difference. So it'll be really interesting to hear how people get on with this one. Okay, next up, conscious of the time. Language and self-authenticity. I said that the goal really, if there's a secret, we have to be authentic. Because when we're really authentic, when we're really Alex or Michael or Sharika, those moments, time almost gets suspended, and we have that sense of truly accepting ourselves without titles, without significance, without anybody else and status. How do we do that? Now, some of the steps we've just shared will help you to do that because it gets rid of all of these things that weigh us down. But a shortcut, if there is a shortcut, is this further step. This is step 4 of 3 minutes, that magic 3 minutes in the day, finding time to connect with those things that allow us to be free in our hearts. What do I mean by that? I think we've had some earlier conversations around music, dance, architecture, books, film. Find 3 minutes. That I don't know Alex that well. I know her relatively well. It's been a privilege to work with her and all these things. But there might be a time when Alex dances like no one's watching. I don't know. Maybe Michael sings out loud. I'm not sure. I know I do sometimes. I'm talking about those moments. How do we access them? 3 minutes a day. There's some deliberate pictures on the right hand side. I'm an unabashed ABBA fan. I'll start at the bottom there. I think anyone listening to Dancing Queen, it's impossible not to feel great. So that's I can always turn the mic on. Not. I'm with you on that, Michael. One of the short story on that was that at school, in primary school, my friend and I, we were in the music class and we were singing hymns with the rest of the class. I think it was 10. I can't remember now. And the teacher very politely, very graciously at the end of the song said, Suhail, and I won't name the other chap, would you mind sitting out for the next? Because our voices were so bad. So yes, I'll sing only when no one else is listening. It's not really good. Okay, 3 minutes. What do you do on our phones? I'll listen to ABBA. I'll listen to Stormzy, Blinded by Your Grace. I don't know if anyone's listened to that particular track. It's very, very beautiful. Home Alone. I'm a boxing fan, so anything to do with Muhammad Ali, music. Sometimes I listen to things that will make me cry. touch a part of sadness. Why? Because I think that's cathartic. Bring that out. I like to feel my emotions fully. What do you listen to? What's your go-to track that makes you feel wonderful, or your go-to film? For me, if I want to laugh and be completely crazy, I'll watch Hangover. If anyone's ever seen that, it's not high art or literature. It makes me laugh like crazy. On the flip side, if you like Dr. Zhivago, David Lean version, absolutely magnificent. For me, those are beautiful things. What was the film Lady Gaga was in? A Star is Born. I went to see that in the cinema 4 times because at that period in my life, I was going through a very painful divorce. It allowed me to connect with that feeling and bring that out. It made a big, big difference. Oguniyi, listening to gospel music, it's incredibly uplifting. I have a very good friend of mine who was for a time the director and manager of a gospel choir. Quite uplifting, beautiful, spiritual music. If that touches your heart, amazing. Never ever asked you, actually, Alex. Go-to film, go-to song? You don't have to say, just interesting.
Probably go-to film. Actually, Home Alone is a firm favourite. I won't watch it before 1st of December. But yeah, absolutely adore Home Alone. Watching Friends, that's a big comfort watch for me. So yeah, those are I'd probably go to that. And then on music, anything Mariah Carey, anything I can have a sing and dance along to is great.
Yeah, Big Bang Theory is something I've been introduced to quite recently, which is really, really great fun. I sing aloud and dance to the music. I think that's from Ada and Yolande to her music. Her music clearly a big one. 3 minutes in the morning. That's the suggestion. 3 minutes in the morning as part of this ritual. When you like that, it's truly to be real. Right, next step, the 5th step before we go on to emotions. So we'll stay on this slide, no more clicks. So visualization, what does this mean? It means taking ourselves out of the present and looking into the future. Visualization, that the studies now are in positive psychology are replete with examples, particularly when it's athletes, peak performers. Visualizing your outcome helps enormously achieve it and also gives one a sense of expectation. I think the Kobe Bryant is the person I tend to use here. A great basketball player. I'm not a basketball fan. I've never really watched a game beginning to end, but I watched him on YouTube prior to his very tragic death. And he was on record as saying that in the key games that he played, and I believe he's one of the very best of all time. If you're basketball experts, you'll let me know. I think Michael Jordan is the other one. He said that he played the key shots hundreds of times before walking onto the court in his mind. I'm a boxing fan. Muhammad Ali is my hero. He would always be saying, I'm the greatest. I'm going to be the world champion. I'm going to knock them out in this. It doesn't guarantee, but it gives us a sense of abundance and also sparks ideas if you want to achieve anything in your life and takes you away from the humdrum or the mainstream stresses of the day, and it uplifts our spirit. I'm going to ask a question, if I may, on this point. I can't see everybody because your pictures are turned off, but it'd be interesting just to see if you've ever done this. Anyone here ever worry about life, the family, jobs, the world, at least once a month? I'm going to assume there's a few people. I can't see all the hands of people are saying once a week. Definitely me. Once a day, even for a few seconds. Bit of worry. Okay. Now, Galaxy, thank you for saying yes. The good news is, if you're doing that, Schwartz has said more than twice a week. Adrian has been very honest. I worry all the time. I believe I'm worried now. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being honest to share that. Yolande every day. So quite a few people sharing worry, more than worry. Mostly they're from, yes, I do worry, but mostly when things get difficult. From Temi, Josephine has talked about worry. Thank you for sharing that, being honest. And worry has a place because we need to anticipate the future, plan for things. Fantastic. But often when we worry, we're worrying about the things that may never happen or the things that can go wrong. The beautiful thing is that means you're all already practicing an excellent visualization, but we're visualizing what we don't want. So if we click to the next point, please, Alex. Why not start changing that a little bit and focusing on what we want to happen, what we want to achieve? Anyone have a vision board? Alex, people have vision boards nowadays. Have you met anybody? I think that's putting it on literally a board in the house.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite a popular trend now, I think, on Instagram and TikTok, manifestation boards, particularly at the beginning of the year or a new season. I have friends who do that too.
Yes, and again, the feedback is that helps people to focus on where they want to be, helps them I've done that. I visualize in words rather than images. So every day for 3 minutes, I look to where I want to be in a year, and then 3 years. 1 year and 3 years. That's what works for me. It might be 1 week, 1 month for you. But if you visualize, and I visualize about my relationship, my health, business interests, and personal development and reading, I picture them, but mainly I say those things. Sometimes my voice will say, really, really, really. But if we all look on our lives, maybe you set a goal to complete an exam or complete an exercise program. That would have required setting a goal, sometimes having that vision. I find that ideas pop in my head quite regularly about those things when I least expect them, because the mind is focused on that. And that's been quite a big difference. So Temi's asked the question, what's the difference between visualization and imagination? It's probably one of semantics. I think imagination is a faculty that we have within us, which comes from the heart. This is my view, based on traditional wisdom, which complements what we have in here, the rational brain, the cognitive function. Both are really, really important. We talked about mind, body, and spirit, and social aspects of wellness. So the visualization is bringing the imaginative faculty within us into either a picture or words about where we want to be. And all the evidence, as I've said, suggests from peak performance that this helps getting those things to actually manifest. It does not guarantee it. If I could, I'd love to be able to guarantee that, but it makes quite a big difference. It's made a big difference to me and all the people who have tried it. And as Alex said, vision boards are another thing. Visualization just is seeing it in a far space ahead. It can be, Sharika, it's definitely ahead. It might not be too far ahead, because as an example, I was working with somebody who's a very well-respected leader in their field, in their business, but unfortunately was involved at the time when I was working with her in an physically abusive relationship. And this meant breaking up, young children involved, lawyers. It's a huge amount of stress. And she said to me, really, Suhail, look, all I can at the moment visualize is next week and next month. I can't even think further ahead. That's fine. This is, again, I'm not imposing what 1 year and 3 year works for me. What works for you will be dependent on what your goal is and what the situation is. It could be a super stressful situation like that was. So 1 week, I need to find somewhere else to live. I need to get support for the kids. I need to tell the school. I need to find a lawyer. That's amazing. That's just focus on those while you're dealing with all the emotional pain. And in a month's time, I'm in a different place. So I think that's the goal as far as what works for you. Bolaji said, I visualize things beforehand. Absolutely. And I think if you try it for 3 minutes, it's a bit of fun anyway, but it has a practical difference because it takes you away from what you don't want. And as I said, you have all practiced it, because worrying is setting what you don't want to happen. What about focusing on what we do want to happen? Okay, so those are the things that we've now covered. The 5 steps, 3 minutes each, is a picture of Kobe Bryant over there. What I want to do in the last 10, 12 minutes is to look at the whole concept of emotions very briefly and share a few exercises which I hope will make a difference to bring those to life. Because I said at the beginning, the goal here is to give us more of the emotions that we want, less of the emotions that we don't want. And emotions really are, in a sense, the quality of our life. What do I mean by that? Our values and beliefs are really important, but most people, might be exceptions here, but most people don't spend most of the day, every day, evaluating their beliefs and values and goals. We live, we have things going on in our head. We feel up and down on a broad basis, these emotions. What are they? What can we do to get more of the ones that we want in addition to these steps? I put a list here of words that have been taken from people in health and social care. I asked if you could write a word or a couple of words that would describe how you feel over the last couple of weeks, over the last month. And thank you, Sharika, which has to go. Thank you for joining us. I hope you get a chance to watch the rest. Have a look at the words here. There's a whole variety of things. I think, Alex, the webinars that we've done, you can by all means share what words would apply to you. You don't have to. I think we probably had everybody share over the last year a whole variety or a mixture of all of those, I think, across different groups of people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very, very common mixed emotions, people feeling different emotions within minutes as well. So yeah, very common.
No, great. So let me just stay on this page, if I may. I've called these empowering emotions, all of them. There's a couple of reasons for that. For some of them, anger and indignation, sadness. Are they empowering? Well, there's two things. One, I'd like for everyone, I would say in my view in life, is to honor all the emotions that we feel, rather than pretend they don't exist or admonish ourselves for feeling them. Let's honor that emotion. So they're empowering in the sense that we're being truthful and authentic if we feel a certain way. And secondly, actually, let's take anger or indignation. In the right way and channeled, that's a really, really empowering emotion. Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, the civil rights movement in the United States 60 years ago, when an African American was legally obliged to give their seat up on a public transport to a white individual. Unless someone got angry about these things, they wouldn't have changed. So there's a place for these emotions. But sometimes we look at emotions as some overarching, overbearing, fixed, dogmatic things that we are stuck to. And I just want to test that a little bit, if I may. Alex, I'm sorry to pick on you. I know you're doing all the technical stuff, but just very briefly, I'd like, if I may, to have you as the guinea pig. We can see Alex on our screens. If I may, if you want to shut your eyes just briefly, if that's possible, and just think of an event in the recent past or in the distant past that did cause you upset and annoyance. Nothing too traumatic. Hopefully there is nothing like that, but something that caused you angst or stress or worry. Just go back to that event. And you don't need to tell us what it is. If you can picture that event and the people, or if there were people involved, what was said and how you felt when this event took place and how it caused you stress and upset. Just play that in your mind as if you're watching a film and you are in that film. So just stick with that. Just there, and what was being said. Is it in color? Is it in black and white? What were the smells and the sounds of this event that gave you a little bit of stress? Now, I want you to think instead of the last time Bobby came running up to you and disturbed you from what you were doing. Now, Bobby, for those who don't know, is Alex's absolutely wonderful pet dog. I keep forgetting the breed now. Boston Terrier, is that right? Saw him yesterday, absolutely beautiful. Reminded me of a French Bulldog, and I got that wrong. So if you notice, thank you, Alex, if people noticed what happened to Alex's face when she was thinking about the event that was causing her a bit of a pain, a bit of a problem, or discomfort, upset, whatever the word was. Who was responsible now when I mentioned Bobby? Did we see Alex's face? Just a smile went from ear to ear. You could see her completely change. I happen to know because I could mention Bobby because I knew this would have this effect. Okay, and he's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. He's not with us today, I don't think, sitting next to you.
He actually started barking just as you started talking about him. So he sensed you.
I didn't set that up. Right. So thank you. So, Alex, how long? Who was responsible for the change? Did you feel a change in your facial expressions and your breathing, etc.?
Definitely. Yeah, no,
How
absolutely.
long did it take you to jump?
A second.
So, the point that I'm trying to make there, and we would do this in a bigger class, far more in more depth. But staying on this slide, it shows that we have far more sovereignty over our emotions than we realize. Not all of them, and sometimes there's a clinical reason for people's emotions, but in the main, we can switch from a place where we're tightened, we don't feel great, as Alex said in that particular, we don't even need to know what it was, and in an instant, a huge smile that beamed up the whole of my screen with Bobby, with an little extra roll from Bobby there. So why? Because in the vast majority of cases, if we click to the next slide, the emotions that we feel are a function of these three things. What we focus on, so you were focusing on something that wasn't great, then you focused on Bobby. Probably when you were focused on the thing that wasn't great, you don't need to tell me. There might have been words that were being said, things that you described to yourself. But when you talked about Bobby, probably you might have pictured him running, smiling, whatever it might be. And your face completely changed. So how we use our body, what we focus on, and what things mean to us determine many of the emotions that we have. I want to leave by staying on this slide you with a couple of very quick exercises. If you can all join me, I can't see you, but I'm hoping you're going to join me. Please close your eyes, relax, and just briefly think about a beautiful place that has meaning for you. It could be in this country, perhaps it's abroad. It could even be a beautiful item, perhaps some architecture, some art, perhaps nature. We had someone earlier talk about nature, some beautiful place that has a meaning for you. Just think about it and feel being in that place. And now I'd like you to also, this is an easy one for Alex, think about an animal that you love. Now, I tend to think of either a sloth, because they're my favorite animals, or also Barney, who was the family Chihuahua who passed away earlier this year at the age of 17. Think of an animal, maybe a pet that your family has or had, or an animal that you just find beautiful in the world. And finally, if I may ask, think of a beautiful person. Visualize them. It could be someone really famous, an icon of our age. It could be someone you know. It could be you. Someone beautiful. Thank you. If you just open the eyes and click the next slide, please. Those are the exercises. Again, these can be done at any moment of any day. They can take a minute, they can take 5 minutes, they can take 50 seconds. The world will always throw us curveballs. It's never a straight line. Some days will be for us, some days will be against us. And sometimes in between as well, hours between us. But there's always a place that we can go to find repose and connection. Perhaps to our heart, a sense of love, particularly. I saw Alex's face. Well, I knew it would be. If it was Bobby, it might have been another animal. These things are real and they make a difference. Will they solve all our problems? No. Will they give us the resources to realize that there's some beauty in the world and around us from which we can draw inspiration? Yes. And they don't cost anything to do. And there are a few minutes, in addition to the 5 steps at the beginning. International Stress Awareness Day. How do we lessen that stress? Anxiety, how do we make sure we curtail that stress so it isn't a constant all the time? How do we take ownership of that beauty that resides within us? I hope those things have been helpful. It'd be great to hear from you in terms once you practice these things. If we go to the next slide, please. Alex, conscious within the last 3 minutes. This is a book that I wrote, and from it is the quote I mentioned earlier. I do believe that all of us are brave and beautiful within. I think it's something perennial within human beings, but we forget that. and we need to access that. And I do believe there is one light that unites us all, and we just need to find the time to refract it in our own individual beautiful ways. I'm grateful for everybody for coming along today, and we at Future U are really proud to share what we've learned and what we've learned from others in all of these wellness courses. And thank you, Alex, for your guidance and expertise and all the technical stuff. And I know how passionate you are about this subject. If there's any questions, more than happy to answer them. But Alex, in terms of continuing professional development, all of you will have access to that. I'll leave you to, I'm not going anywhere, but I'll leave you to give us the details around that.
Thank you, Suhail. Thank you so much for a really inspiring session. If you would like to register your attendance and gain your CPD credit, you can do that by either scanning the QR code that's on the screen, and I've also just added the link into the chat. So if you prefer, you can just click on the link and that will take you through to a page where you'll just need to pop in your name and your email address, and then you'll get your certificate that you can use as evidence of your professional development. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to add them into the chat now. I'm also just going to add a couple more links into the chat. So first of all, I've added Suhail's email address if you'd like to get in touch with him directly after the session. I've also added a link to the Future U blog, where you can find lots of really useful information, blogs on wellness. We've just posted something about stress today. So yeah, feel free to head there for some more resources. And I've also added a link where you can download the free Future U app if you haven't done so already. So you can access over 100 healthcare courses there, many of which are CPD accredited. And that also includes Suhail's Inner Wellness course, which develops the themes that Suhail has covered in today's session. So hopefully that will be useful too. Look out for an email from me either later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning, where I'll be sharing a recording of the session if there's anything that you want to recap on. And I'll also be including all of the links that I've shared here as well. So if you don't catch them, don't worry. Yeah, I think I'm just checking to see if there's any questions.
We're right at the end of the lovely words, lovely comments. Thank you. We appreciate them, all of you, and for giving us your time and joining.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Fantastic. Well, if there's no questions, we'll leave it there. But thank you, everybody. Oh, we've got a question from Samuel. How can I redirect my mind from negative thoughts?
It's a great question, and it's not an easy answer. Samuel, did you say?
Yes.
So Samuel, if you can incorporate just even 3 minutes of one of these exercises and start from there and then build the other exercises in, you will find, I guarantee, over time, more of your thoughts being changed into positive, more empowering things, particularly the visualization and the contemplation and some of the glimpse exercises that we've talked about here. Incorporate that. Just start with 3 minutes. Start with one of the steps, 3 minutes a day, and build up to 15 minutes and see the difference. Email me. Thank you, Samuel.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. But as I said, thank you very much, Suhail, for joining us today. And thank you to everybody for all of your contributions, all of your honesty. It's been a pleasure.
Great hosting, as Shart said. Alex, thank you for all your help. And thank you for all the lovely comments. We really enjoy spending time with you. Yes, focus. Just take those steps, Samuel, and I promise over time the balance will change.